All right. So, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining this special webinar about succeeding in uncertain times. Before we start, I want to encourage you to stay to the end. We have a special bonus gift for you. Also, if you have any questions for speakers, please post them to the Q&A, and we'll leave plenty of time to answer them later on. So, why are we here? We have lots of Touro students who are graduating into what is likely to become the most challenging period of their life. We already have record-breaking unemployment and not much when it comes to good news. Our goal today is to change that, to not only give you hope, but street smart and expert tips to help you achieve your goals. COVID-19, other than the pain, suffering, and anxiety that is all around us, has also given us a golden opportunity, a once-in-a-lifetime wake-up call to examine every aspect of our life and career, assess it, fix it, and get ready to re-enter whatever normal is going to be. I say that because for some people, COVID-19 will also become a scapegoat, the virus to blame when things are not working. While we can't ignore the impact of the pandemic, we must remember that even during a bad recession or a depression, there are plenty of people who find a way to succeed. As you will discover today, it doesn't happen by chance. Our speakers today are real-life examples of failure is not an option, and they're going to lay for you a roadmap. Those specific actions you should take during this golden period of reassessment to give yourself a higher probability of success. Human beings can handle pretty much anything, but we don't do well with uncertainty and when we feel that we have no control over the future. But as you will hear today, there are specific skills that you can adopt or improve on to help you overcome your biggest challenge, the voices inside your head. To overcome any challenge, you must start with a strong sense of believing in yourself and in the future, as this brilliant and very appropriate quote reminds us. Faith is taking the first step, even when you can't see the whole staircase. With that in mind, I want to lay out the process of the webinar today. We're going to take you through those critical skill sets that you would need to increase your probability of success. We'll start with your personal brand. How do you get noticed? Ramon will take us through that. We'll move on to your ability to communicate. People judge you by the way you present yourself. Jess Todtfeld. Think like an employer. From behind the scenes, Mary Grimm will tell you what employers really want. And we'll wrap it up with David's a success mindset, the courage to never give up. And so I want to welcome our speakers. Thank you again for donating your time and sharing this with our students. Ramon Ray is the founder of Smart Hustle Media, an entrepreneur, author, and speaker who loves burnt pancakes and bacon on the weekends. In 2016, Inc. magazine ranked Ramon in the top 8 entrepreneurs you should follow, and he was number 3 after Gary Vaynerchuk and Grant Cardone. In 2019, he was chosen to the top 50 social media influencers in the US. Ramon has been invited as an expert witness to the United States Congress, spoke at the White House on personal branding, interviewed President Obama in the president's first live video chat, and was invited to the Global Entrepreneurship Summit in India. Ramon's passion is to help Main Street small business owners and entrepreneurs achieve success. Ramon is going to share how you can develop a personal brand and how to let the world know you exist. Jess is the president of Success in Media, one of the top communication training firms in the US. Jess was a TV producer for 13 years with ABC, NBC, and Fox. He is a speaker, trainer, author of 4 books, and a Guinness record holder for most media interviews given in 24 hours on radio, 112. Jess is a communication and media expert who helps CEOs, celebrities, experts, and business leaders to give authentic, interesting, and actionable speeches and presentations. As a trainer, he has coached clients from the United Nations, IBM, JP Morgan, AARP, USA Today, Land Rover USA, LinkedIn, North Face, and the ASPCA. Jess will tell you how to present yourself in a way that engages and leaves a lasting and positive impression. Mary Grimm leads the recruiting team for Beacon Hill Associates in New York City, recently ranked the #3 fastest growing recruiting firm in the US. She oversees the sourcing, recruitment, screening, selection, and placement of the highest caliber administrative talent in New York City. Ms. Grimm has placed thousands of candidates at industry leaders in financial services, investment management, private equity, banking, consulting, media, and academia. In addition to her recruiting responsibility, Mary also provides account management and support to New York City clients. Before entering the staffing industry, Mary taught English in Spain for 3 years, while also documenting her cultural and employment relocation as part of a government grant. Mary earned her Bachelor's of Arts degree from Ohio Wesleyan University, where she majored in international business and Spanish. Mary is an employment recruiting expert, and she will reveal what comes after a perfect resume and a LinkedIn profile. In other words, what employers want in an ideal candidate and what you must do for a chance to get picked. And finally, David Nagle is the founder of the multi-million-dollar global company Life is Now, helping thousands of entrepreneurs, experts, and self-employed professionals gain the confidence and find the right mindset to success. For the past 20 years, David has coached thousands, including well-known celebrities, and his coaching has expanded to over 30 countries. David has been featured on Forbes, CBS, NBC, Wall Street Journal, Entrepreneur, and Fox. David is also the best-selling author of The Millions Within. David is a success coach, and he will share his tips on developing a mindset that will enable you to get out of your own way, conquer fear, and achieve your goals. And so since success is sort of like the topic for today, I was spending a lot of time trying to find a definition that did not include money. And so I came across this that I wanted to share with the panel and then invite your comments later on. Success is spending the majority of my time focused on work or tasks that are fulfilling, maximizing my potential, and helping other people in a meaningful way while providing the freedom, lifestyle, and experiences that I desire. One more quote that I know my panelists will agree with from Jeff Hating at Inc. Highly successful people consider themselves to be average in almost all things. Their only advantage is hard work, mental toughness, determination, willpower, and perseverance. And so with that as a warm-up, I want to kick this off and start with personal branding and Ramon. And Ramon, first question, what was a life-changing event for you? How did it impact you and how did it change the trajectory of your career or your life?
Sure. And thank you again. I just want to give a big shout out to Zev. And I think everybody in the chat should put ZEV if you agree with me that Zev is a rock star. And thanks for bringing this amazing panel together. And I always wondered why Mary had never hired me through her company. And I realized she only works with amazing people. So that's why I realized all these years it was like, no Ramon, no Ramon. So that was just a silly little joke. But Zev, glad to be here. Thanks for having us all here. You're amazing. And thanks for serving your students. But I think for me, Zev, I've gone through several things in life. But I must say, some people have had a much harder life than me, for sure. I've never been in abject poverty, never had child abuse, things of this nature, which many people have gone through, which are very severe. And I'll never take away from that, or the things that are happening today with George Floyd and things of this nature and so severe issues with COVID. But I think for me, I think having a child while I was very young, I think that was a very big deal in my life. You don't know how your life would be, but I'm blessed in saying that everything turned out great. As you know, Zev, I have a wonderful wife, been married 26 years, amazing son. So I think that that was one thing in my life, having a child while very young. I think two, being fired and resigned from the United Nations. I say both because it depends on what you think of it. But that was a tragic moment to be told, Ramon, you're out of work. So I think those are two things that I can think about in my life regarding career that have been defining moments that have helped me in many different ways. I think to grow, to mature, have experiences that I wouldn't have. And of course, you mentioned some things in my bio. There's been some feathers in my cap professionally that I'm very proud of. But as far as life that I can think of, those are two things that I can think of.
And obviously somebody picked up those feathers because you don't have them anymore. Okay, Ramon. So let's dive into personal branding. For
Sure.
people who are not in marketing, can you please explain in very simple terms what exactly is personal brand and why does it matter?
Yeah, for sure. And if you give me, if I may unpack for about 2 minutes, if I may unpack a
Go
few other things,
ahead.
thank you beyond that as well. So I think that for me, personal branding in the marketing sense, I think we refer to it as who you are and people remembering who you are. I have a certain brand, a certain way I do things. David does, Jess does, Mary and her company. So I think that personal branding is how people remember you. I like to say, do you pop and sizzle? What makes you different? To how people remember you best. But I do think, Zev, in the context of the students here, I just wrote down some things. In fact, while you were speaking there, some things, and just 3 key points. For me, I think for the students, personal brand's important, Zev. And I'll unpack this as best I can, but I think I have a website I posted on LinkedIn at 3traits.com, hard work, attitude, and knowledge. I think those are 3 real things for everybody, but for young people, I tell my kids that, Zev. And it's not building your personal brand in the corporate sense, the business sense, but an 18-year-old, 22-year-old, you're able to outwork anybody or work hard, as it were. 2, your attitude. I think that's important. And 3, then just to be smart in something. And last thing I'll end with, and how this ties in, Zeph, as I see it, and I can bring some other points as you wish, but I think is that I find people are looking for why not you. Some things are obvious. I'm looking to work for David. And David sees Ramon came in late every time, or Ramon, his attitude is bad every time. That's a clear thing of why not you. David will never forget that. Ramon came in late 10 times. Ramon had a bad attitude every time I asked him to do something in my office. That's a why not you. I think the why you, let's do the converse. Ramon was early every time. Every time I asked Ramon to do something, he excelled at it. You're by default, Zev, building your personal brand. David's going to remember me. So I think for me, Zev, that's how I think of it regarding students and the personal, the business side of it. How can people remember you? Because the last thing, and turn it back to you, Zev, is that I think people, Zev, don't have room for plain vanilla, as it were. Don't have room for people in the middle. There are that, but nobody wants to be, hi, I'm Joe. Hire me if you want. Don't hire me if you do, or hi. There's no room for that today. So those are some things I think about.
Got it. So, Ramon, I'm all glammed up. I got the pink shirt, the cool hat, the shoes, and I got my brand. Now, how do I make it work? I've got it all together, right? I covered the things you just said. How do I let the world know I have a brand?
Well, in that case, then, yeah, no, great question. I would take it to the next level then. And for me, let's say I have, I'm, as it were, things you said, you're doing that well, you're working hard, you have a good attitude, you're knowledgeable. Now it's where I think 2 things, and ironically, I wrote this down as well. 2 things I would do. 1, be helpful. And I'm just picking out my friends and my colleagues on this webinar. So Jess, he's a media person, PR, branding, publicity. He may need somebody to help set up his cameras. He may need some help video editing. I'm making this up. But the point being, now that I have that, hey, Jess, or hey, Mr. Todtfeld, however you wish to address them, you're younger, whatever. Can I help you? Can I hang out with you for 30 days and help you do some editing? Can I just go get your bagels while you're doing a video shoot? My point being, Zev, now that you have that together, you're younger, people don't know you, just be helpful. And even at almost 50 years old, that's all I do. I have to earn money. I have to be, make a living, but I start kind of with how can I add value to your world? So that's 1. And I think the second thing I would say is that besides just being helpful, work your network. You take a look at Mary, seasoned woman, knows a lot of people. Now I've been helpful to Mary. Hey, Mary, listen, just want you to know, I'd really love to work in the botanical garden. It's something I've always wanted to do. If you know anybody that maybe I could just talk to, I'd appreciate it, Mary, if you can introduce me. The only answer Mary's going to give is yes. So that's what I would say for that, Zev.
So I kind of want to bring an example for my son, who is a phenomenal jazz musician.
Sure.
And was really tutored by some incredible people. And I remember one day we sat with a world famous bass player, and he looked at the kids, and they were kids, and they were very talented. And he said to them, look, you're great musicians, but if you're going to sit home and wait for the phone to ring, you're going to starve to death.
That's right.
So humble yourself. Go play in bar mitzvahs and wedding and in the subway and on a cruise ship. Don't get too picky. Go out there and get noticed, which is, I think, in other words, in our world, it's network. Right. And you can network by volunteering, and you can network by doing your own thing in your own unique way. But as you said, Ramon, is first package yourself up, build up the authenticity, the integrity, the criteria that you develop. Then you're ready to go out and share who you are with the world through working smart, not working hard, right? Sit home and wait for the phone to ring. Not going to happen. Great. Last question. If one of our students or members in the audience asked you, how long does it take to develop a brand? I need a job. I cannot just do a great resume, LinkedIn profile. What do I do to get differentiated, to get noticed?
Sure. And you asked a kind of a two-part, how long? I wasn't sure if that was, so I'll answer that one kind of two in one. But three things I would say that come to mind for me, Zev. I think one, if you need to be there, and the students out there, and I think all of us on this call probably have been there, ramen depends on noodles and, no money. My kids have been there because I forced them to be there. Like, no, I'm not paying for it. You get your own money. So trust me. My point being, if you're there, you need to survive. So shout out to you, my empathy to you. If you need to eat, you do what you can just to survive, take care of your brothers and sisters, depending on where you're at in life. So that's one, survival. I think two, if you need to do it now, this is where, again, the digital world enables anybody to be a publisher. You take that phone day in, day out. Hey, this is Aliza. Hey, this is Anastasia. Hey, this is Ann. Blah, blah, blah. Whatever your thing is, David's going to notice you at some point. Mary may notice you. Jess, you know what? I need somebody to do some interviews for me, kind of a millennial thing I'm starting. And I'm making it up, but you get my point. So just get out there and get it done. That's two. And I think three, but you're right, Zev, if you need it and you need it now, it's urgent, work your network a little harder. And I'm telling anybody out there, if I can help you in the stuff I do, as far as larger companies, that's my niche or whatever it is, email me, hit me up. So I think it's about doing it, get out there. And the last thing I'll say is that to that point, I think of Steve Harvey's story, and there's so many like this, but he talks about how week after week after week, he just played in the clubs, played in the low-level places, played with two people, did jokes in front of his mama, just kept doing it. And I'm imagining all of us have been there, and eventually it came. I spoke, Zev, as you may know, 2-3 years for SCORE, and I still do it, but for free. I haven't always been flying in a plane and getting nice money to speak. No. Week after week, 26 Federal Plaza, taking the train, speaking in front of SCORE. People falling asleep, not caring, but I just did it. And that's how I practiced. And I still can't speak. I still slur my words. I still don't have the eloquence and fine clothing of Jess, but everybody can't do that. So I do my best. But the point is, keep doing it.
So that's a perfect segue to Jess. Teach Ramon how to speak. Do the camera. Jess, it's all you. Life-changing moment that you can recall. How did it impact your trajectory of your career, your life? Share.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you the life-changing moment, and there's one negative one and one positive one. And just to give some perspective about my background, I was a TV producer for 13 years on the national level. I worked at ABC, NBC, and Fox, and I left to start my own business. So some people have referenced the businesses training and speaking about either giving speeches or speaking to the media, a subset of that, since I had that media background. And I would say the tough experience that I went through that changed me in some way was the recession in late 2007, because I let go and quit my cushy TV job to start my own business 3 months before the recession started. And I had a choice. And I think anytime we're standing on top of one of those big life moments, whether it's something great like getting married or graduating, or something going wrong, the economy's not going well, there's COVID-19, there's a pandemic, there are troubles in the world. When we're on that moment, it's our moment to shine. Everybody wants to see, whether you're giving a speech, something I talk about, or just going about your life, everyone is looking to see what you'll do next. And you have a choice. You get to decide. You get to decide to stop and be, we have that response, the stress response, fight or flight or fight or freeze, or we can stop and take a breath. We're allowed to be human beings. We can stop and take a breath, and we could say, what do I want to choose to do next? So if we're giving a speech, and by the way, or another word for speech is presentations, there's a certain kind of presentation pretty much everybody who's listening in right now is about to go do. You know what that is, Zev? I put Zev on the spot. He's like, tell me. I'll just tell you.
Tell me.
Job interviews. What? That's a kind of presentation? Yes, it is. You are presenting a version of yourself, and you're standing on a certain moment, and you have a choice. So the choice is you can be the same as everybody else, or you could be just enough different to stand out. So you can fit in, and it feels good sometimes to fit in. And as your life continues to go, you're going, and you get older and time goes on, you're going to notice that there are moments to stand out and stand out in a great way. And people are going to tell you this phrase. I guarantee you're going to hear it soon. Get ready. Here it is. They're going to say, you know what? Just go in there and fake it till you make it. And even Mary and everyone's now shaking their heads because we're a little bit older. And here's something that nobody wants to feel, and I know we have a variety of ages of our people who've graduated, but no one wants to feel like a fake. But I'm not ready. I never did this new job I'm going for. Whether I know that Adriana in the chat was saying, I want to have my own business. So whether you're going for a traditional job or doing your own thing, instead of fake it till you make it, get rid of that. I'm going to give you a new phrase. It's act it and become it. So you act the part, and next thing you know, you are the part. So Zev, just to tie a bow on your question, the recession changed me because I had to come to terms with everything falling apart. And I said, okay, I have a choice. I can curl up in a ball, and believe me, I felt like that immediately, or I can run full force into it. And guess what? I run my own business, and it worked out because I decided to be unstoppable. It may not have worked, but I made that decision. And when COVID-19 happened, a lot of my business fell apart. And I said, I have a choice. I can run full forward. And I don't know, a number of people in the chat were saying, I don't know what my brand is. It'll evolve over time. But things have actually been going very well in the last month and a half. Not so much right as all this stuff was happening, but all those moments define you. Thanks, Ev.
Perfect. Okay, so now I'd like to dig in with a few things. So maybe I'm dating myself, Jess. You might remember this, but if you remember the slogan from Verbal Advantage, people judge you by the words you use. Communicating effectively more than just words. Can you speak about the components of how to make a presentation or communicate effectively? And I just want to say that while the graduates might be thinking job interviews, and since I'm Ramon's groupie and they should really follow him, Ramon talks to everybody. He talks to Uber drivers. He talks to cleaners on the street. He talks to everyone. And the amount of, Ramon, I know it's true because you share it, the amount of wisdom and knowledge and connection that he's been able to make by just being open and speaking to people. I know it's changed his life many times over. So that's a skill, right, Jess? Talk about that.
All this is a skill. Everybody who's tuning in right now is learning something and they've hit this end moment. I'm going to say, keep learning, keep learning. I've talked to some younger people who say, I don't like reading as much. Okay, then watch a YouTube video, listen to a podcast, however you want to get it, keep learning, keep getting better. And your question was about presentations. And I said a job interview is a type of a presentation. Getting up and giving a speech is a presentation. Just talking to your new boss is a type of presentation because they're looking at everything. There's two pieces. I'm giving you the speed round. Style and substance. Which one's more important? You may wonder. Oh, is it that I'm using my body language or that I have something to say and maybe without the body? They're both important. You can't have one without the other. You have to have style and you have to have something to say. You have to have them both. So I'm giving you a little speed round. When you're giving presentations in front of people, there's a magic phrase, for example. So you make great points and then you say, for example, here's something that I once did. So you may say, I have no experience. I'm going out there. You've done something. You've had jobs that you've had summer jobs, or you had internships, or you've had positions of leadership somewhere along the way. use that for your for example. You say, yes, I've done that. In fact, for example, hey, I was a scout leader, or I did this other thing. I did this thing at my church or in my community. So those are a few things: style, substance, and for example. Zeb?
Last question. One of the things that I hear almost from every student, because they have to present case studies: I hate public speaking. I hate to stand in that position and speak to someone else, whether it's one-on-one or in a group. What can you do? What can you tell them to help them out?
Be a student of this stuff. I'm just going to say, let's not call it public speaking. Let's call it business speaking. That's when it really matters. That's when you want to get ahead in your job. Oh, but something makes me feel I'm not, you know, it's funny. The real reason why we feel weird about it is because it's something we don't do all the time. You have these speakers here. We speak to people more often, so it doesn't feel like that big of a deal. As time goes on for all of you, the more you do it, the less of a big deal it'll feel like. But be a student, learn. Some of it's too bad. You've had things in your life where you're like, oh, this makes my stomach feel a little uncomfortable. Well, did you live? Yeah. Okay. So, you know, deal with it. And I just want to put this little cherry on top, because you had a little quote about success, which is, I think we could boil it down to one word today for all of these graduates who are going out there and defining success. And it's one word: happiness. That can be your filter. Whether it's this job, does it give me happiness? Does it drive me in some way? You know, family decisions, life decisions. Maybe at a certain point, a job doesn't give you happiness. And it's time for a new one.
Funny, that was my runner-up definition. It had to do with, are you happy? That's the definition of success.
I stole it from you. I'm staring at your computer.
Please stop. Please stop. Okay, so we talked about personal branding, how to communicate that brand, and off to Mary. Mary, same question to you. Life-changing moment. How did it impact you?
It's perfect, because basically what the two gentlemen before said is going to tee me right up for what I want to talk about, which is the fact that I actually graduated during the last recession, when, you know, only 1/5 of grads had a job. And I was one of those people who immediately didn't have a job. And so I completely had to pivot while still faced with the fear of, how am I going to pay my bills? Am I going to have to move back in with my parents? What are they going to say when I was lucky to have them pay for my education, but when I don't have a job or anything, you know, to show for it? And there was a lot of fear associated with that. And we can talk about it now. We can talk about it in a little bit. But what I decided to do was I moved abroad. So I found an opportunity through a teacher of mine. I essentially networked the heck out of my school, and I learned about an opportunity to go to Spain. So I did, and I ended up staying for 3 years. And then the second hardest thing that I faced was coming back, to be honest, because I had to develop my brand and my story to people who didn't quite understand it. They didn't understand how teaching English was going to relate to a job in a corporate environment. So I had to brand myself and be able to craft my story to then get hired in a job, which was recruiting.
So how do you get past it? How do you explain I taught English while you interview for a recruiting job?
So the big thing, you know, that I think we hear right now is you have to have grit. You know, you have to have a grit now. You had to have grit 10 years ago. At any point in your career, you have to have grit. Recruiting is the same exact thing. And so what I explained is I created an opportunity for myself when there weren't other opportunities out there, some people thought. And then I went and I taught English not only in a school, but I created my own business. You know, I taught 15 to 20 people outside of the high school to make extra money and to travel. And then I explained what traveling taught me about working with different people of different cultures, of different backgrounds, and being able to relate to them. And then I talked about speaking a foreign language and how often you are given feedback when you speak a foreign language because you don't speak it perfectly, and being able to pick yourself up in the moment and then keep the conversation going. And I will also say, as a recruiter, it was easier for me to relate to people who were then having difficulty finding a job, because I was also once in that place too.
Perfect. So let's dive into recruiting. Let's do a little bit of role play, and let's say I am one of your corporate clients. And I gave you the job description, what you're looking for. I gave you our screening criteria. You got the assignment out of the way. But now I turn to you and say, Mary, I know there are lots of great unemployed candidates out there, but here's who we want. Who is that?
So I think you have to look when you see a job posted, and I would tell anybody this, because for whether you're a recent grad, you're somebody who has, recently been let go, you are probably looking at thousands of postings a day and thinking, I just need to mass apply. What that turns into something is actually mass frustration, because you've applied to 100, 200 things in one day, and you haven't heard back from anybody. So what I would urge anybody who applies to a job is there are two things. There's the actual skill set, and then there's the soft skills, right? So if the job says, for example, I place executive assistants, the job says you need 5+ years of executive assistant experience, and you look at your resume and you only have 1 year plus, I would honestly recommend not applying for that job, because then you will feel down when you don't hear back. Now, a way to potentially get hired for a job like that is what somebody was talking about earlier with the networking, to find a specific connection at that company that you're related to. That's a way to get in. But what a client really wants right now is the client wants somebody who the brand that they portrayed in the interview is the person that they are when they then sit in the seat. So there's a level of, dependability that comes across in an interview by dressing professionally, being on time, and following up. I am of the mindset, if you don't send a thank you note, you probably shouldn't have even interviewed for the job. That's number one for me. So if you do those 3 things in an interview and it comes down to you didn't get the job, my hope is you get feedback for why potentially they then hired another candidate.
Perfect. So if one of the students sees you at a bar, sits down with you, you get to know them, they get to know you, and then they say, can you give me one overt, powerful, impactful advice on how I can break through? Because like you said, most people are going to experience what you just said. All they do is post resume and hit the send button, the enter key, and they'll do it all day long. And also, one of the things that I try to explain, but you, the expert, more often than not, the person who is in charge of screening the resumes, and likely hundreds and thousands of them, they'll probably come out for every posting, is not truly a professional. It's a low-level administrative clerk who gets a template and say, okay, this is good, this goes to the right pile, that one you throw away. And so back to personal branding and how you communicate your differentiation, what advice do you give the students to not get sucked into that black hole of resume writing and posting? What can they do?
So I think the most important thing to remember is the job that you first take might not be your forever job, and that's okay. But what you have to figure out is, how does that job fit into your long-term path and the story that we were talking about before? And that job could be right now, truthfully, working at a grocery store, because right now you need to make money. I would hire somebody who right now is working at a grocery store because they work during this time, to be completely honest. One of my biggest pet peeves as I've been talking to candidates is they say, I'm going to wait until all of this is over. That's great. Wait until all of this is over. You're going to be at the bottom of the pile, to be completely honest. So apply now, build your network now, recognize that the job you take when you first graduate post-COVID might not be a job that you're in forever, but it could still help your long-term career path if there's something that you can learn out of it for the next job. And I know everybody here knows to network. Everybody knows that. But I do want people to know, especially during COVID-19 and everything going on, people want to talk. People are happy to talk. And people want to offer as much help as they can. Find the person in the job that you want to be in. It doesn't have to be right now. It could be 5 to 10 years from now. Reach out to them and ask them how they got there. And that can help you find your path to eventually getting where you want to be.
Right. So that was brilliant. I think for me, the part that it was an emotional impact for me, because it reminds me of my own journey, kind of, when you said, just work, go work in a grocery. There are plenty of jobs, even today, that are posted that people are not taking. And so humble yourself. I remember years ago, I came back as an immigrant with a 6-month-old baby with an MBA, and knew it would take me time. I went to the Ramada Inn on 684 in Westchester, got a job as a front desk clerk, always had my resume in the pocket of my suit, and I knew that one day I'm going to check someone in who's going to give me the break I needed. And you know what? It took me 4 months, but it happened. And if I didn't work, or like you said, sat around and waited to hear back from all the resumes I sent out, I wouldn't even begin my career. So thank you, Mary, and David. Thank you for patiently waiting. And now comes the question about a life-changing moment. Since Ramon, thank you for introducing me to David. I spent hours watching his videos and tapes and listening to him. So same question, life-changing moment. What happened? How did it turn your life around?
Well, first, thank you very much, Zev, and Ramon, thank you very much for recommending me. I really appreciate it. And thank you to be on this honored panel here. I appreciate all of you very much. A life-changing moment came for me when I was 23 years old. I was a high school dropout. I was driving a forklift for a living. I was struggling terribly. I got married, had 2 children, very young, and I couldn't get out of my own way, and I didn't know how to change it. I realized I had made a mistake. But this is pre-internet, right? So it's 1989. If I wanted to go back to school, it was night school or on the weekends, and I was working 6.5 days a week. I happened to get an invite from somebody in my family, my wife and I, to go water skiing on the Illinois River. And I went and I got separated from the boat. I got stuck in the current and I got sucked through a dam. And I was one of 2 people that day that lived going through there. The other person came out a paraplegic. I broke my back. I had pretty severe wounds. I almost drowned, but I got out alive. And the thing was that it caused me to realize that life was short, and if I was going to do anything different, I needed to do it right now. So, like Mary was saying, people are waiting around to get a job. I was waiting around somewhere in my mind for something to happen to change my situation. And I didn't realize I needed to change my situation. It just was not occurring to me. I didn't have that experience. Nobody ever told me that. So that experience, it really jogged me forward probably 10 years in my lifetime, in my maturity, as far as if something's going to change, I'm the one that has to do it right now. And like the whole time that I'm laying there, I'm thinking to myself, why did I live? Why was I one of 2 people in history that went through this dam that survived? There must be a reason for it. And I realized it was my responsibility to find out what that reason was and then do something with it, because that's what I was not doing. I was not doing anything with the life that I had been given.
Okay, so we take a deep breath and take that in. I want to keep this positive because obviously, you know, watching TV on any screen, whether it's the riots, whether it's COVID and the dashboard of how many people died, doesn't help to anybody who wants to really feel good about what's coming. But I think part of the problem that we have is we're really desensitized to anything that has to do with death. Because if I didn't go through what you have, I have no clue what it's like to go through it. Right. You know, it's so we can talk about it, but it's a word. It's like a number on the screen. So I guess the question I have for you is, do you really need to go through a near-death experience for it to change your life? Or is there a shortcut?
I think there's a shortcut. And the reason that I think that is probably the reason that I've been in business for over 20 years doing this, because I've watched people change. What has to happen though, is a person has to become aware of the urgency for themselves to change. Everybody needs their own individual reason. Buddha once said that the great illusion of mankind is that we think we have time. We really don't. I mean, even if you live to be a grand old age, life goes by at a pretty quick trip. I'll be 54 in a couple of weeks, and I'm realizing how fast it's going by. So, but I do think that a lot of people wait around and they don't do anything until life, kind of smacks them in the face in a hard way. And they realize that they hadn't prepared, or they didn't take opportunities that they could have, or they let fear stop them, or they let excuses get in the way. And one of the things that I really learned is I never had an experience where my parents or any school teachers when I was in school sat me down and said, listen, you have an amazing life to live. You have all this time to do something with your life, but you have to realize it's not going to be forever. And the other thing is, we don't know how long we're going to be here. So you really need to seriously think about what you want to make out of it, and really understand that the experience that you have really comes down to your attitude about life. Like, what are you going to make out of it? You have the power to do that. Nobody ever really told me that. I was raised in a middle-class mentality in Chicago. My parents were not around much when I was a kid. And it was kind of like, gee, life sucks. I was dealt a bad hand. My parents took off. They went nuts in their own right. And I'm busy raising myself. I didn't realize how much power I had over the direction of my own life. And I think that if we get that into the minds of people as soon as we can, they can make decisions ahead of time that prevent them from having to make the decision later on when it's even harder. Because once you start to establish your life and you start to create responsibilities, and you're 35 or 45 and you wake up and you go, oh shit, I don't like what I've done. But now you have all these responsibilities. It's like trying to turn around the Titanic. And it's not that people don't do it. People do it every day. But it is very difficult to do it because it's usually a lot of other people and responsibilities are involved. When you're young, you can make choices that will give you a leg up on those decisions. Like I tell people all the time, when you're young, find out what you love to do. Try everything. Work your butt off when you're working for somebody. Don't expect a huge reward up front. Learn everything that you can. Find something that you love. Then go to work for somebody that can teach you everything that you need to know about that thing, and sit at their feet until you master it, and then go out and do it yourself in whatever frame that is. But that's really what my opinion is on we make our own opportunities in life. And to think that we don't is it's foolishness. And it's steeped in victimization, and there's no truth to it whatsoever.
So what do we tell the students, like the rest of us, that are facing 20% unemployment by the time we get to September? Prediction that it will take 2 years for the economy to get back to even a baseline. Their parents may be unemployed. It's really easy to fall into life is horrible. I don't see anything past it. So, David, what do you tell them? How do they get past it? Because even if there's so much reserve that we have internally to get ourselves up in the morning, but sometimes it's coming at you hard from all directions, especially if it hits close to home. I mean, we're human, right? Sometimes we do get sucked under. But you came out of it in a brilliant way. What do we tell them? How do you get past this COVID mess?
I had a gentleman one time, a great mentor of mine for 5 minutes. Okay. Gave me the best advice anybody's ever given me. I was trying something in my first entrepreneurial endeavor, and I was doing everything that I thought that I could to win, and I wasn't making it. And I followed what somebody had told me, which is, if you want success, find somebody who's miles ahead of where you are in a relative field, and go seek their advice, and then do what they tell you to do. So I found this guy, and I went through a lot of effort to meet him and to talk to him. And I told him what was going on, and he looked me right in the eye and he said, you know what your problem is? You don't want it bad enough. And he turned around and he walked away from me. And I don't think I was ever as angry at anybody in my life in that moment as I was at him. And I turned around and I called him all kinds of names in my head, and I started driving home, and I realized he was right. And I thought, you know something? If he's right, where is this showing up in my life? And I realized that everything that I was complaining about that I couldn't do, whether it's get a job, make sales, support your family, whatever it might be, is because that's what you're deciding you're going to do. You're not going to do anything. I believe if somebody doesn't have a job, it's because they don't want a job bad enough. They don't. I have been employing people for 25 years, and I will tell you that the people that I employ want to work. They really want to work. I have always been of the mindset that if somebody wants to work, they'll work. I mean, if you have to push a broom to work, you'll work. You either want to work or you don't. And we forget that we can create our own economy, right? We live in a world where we can create our own economy. But if nobody ever tells you that, you think you're a victim of COVID. You think you're a victim of what's going on outside, and you're not. You just let that form an opinion in your mind that becomes an absolute realization of where you're living or how you're living or how you're experiencing life, but it doesn't mean there's any truth to it. Unfortunately, the way the human mind works is that if we get sucked into a reality, whether it's true or not, if we believe it, it becomes our reality and we stay stuck in that reality. So the idea is this: I don't care how many people tell you no, you haven't asked enough people. You have not gone and set yourself up in a way where you're convincing someone that they should hire you. Before I had any education whatsoever, the thing that changed me from driving a forklift that got me out of the problem was I changed my attitude. I did 3 things. I decided that I was going to act like I love what I did, do every job to the best of my ability, and treat everybody with total respect. In 30 days, my income tripled, and within 7 years, I was in charge of running the company and expanding it across the United States with not one day of further education. It came from educating myself and working harder than anybody else in that company worked. And then when I did that, that's when I stepped out and started my own business. True story.
Amazing. And so, Jess, question for you. So we identified the person that we want to learn from. We work hard. We get an opportunity to talk to them. How do you prepare for the meeting? Let's go back to communications. You don't want to blow it, right? What do you do? How do you prepare for that moment that could change your life, potentially?
Well, I think a lot of people don't prepare. They think, I'm going to wing it. That's my plan. I'm going to wing it. And winging it has very shaky results. So instead of winging it, we should say, I'm going to have some sort of plan, any plan. I'm going to research them. Gee, if only I had access, to the world's information. Wait a second, I have the internet, whether it's on their phone or on the computer, and we can go on LinkedIn. We can notice things that they've been putting anywhere on the internet or a blog, or they were interviewed on a podcast or whatever it is. Learn, figure out, come up with a plan. So if we're talking about, a job interview, or even just so you're networking, you've identified somebody who can help you. I love that story that David just told. He's angry, and then he stopped and he separated himself and said, maybe I can learn something from what this person just told me. And you know what? That's going to happen to all of you in your life over and over. When somebody, sometimes somebody, it's funny, when I go to offer somebody information, I usually ask them to opt in because as a communicator, we should do that and say, oh, would you like feedback on this? And you'd be surprised. Some people are like, oh, I know it really worked out well. Okay, they don't want feedback. I'm like, all right, good, yeah, that's fine. And then some people say, no, tell me, what do you think, did anything work? Usually something worked, and what could be improved? And we have to be open. So even now I'm talking about me on the receiving end of that. If somebody says, oh, I saw you give that speech or do this thing, would you like some feedback? I don't know where they're about to go, but I should probably take that feedback, and probably, even if something stings, it was worthwhile. So hopefully that's helpful.
It's helpful, and I think that it goes to everyone who's a professional. It's about continuous improvements, right? We never stop learning, and we never stop moving forward, because when you do, someone else is going to pass you. Ramon knows it. David knows it. We all have competition. All of us, I think, are entrepreneurs. And it's about really go back to what's your personal brand? What are you known for? But it's, Ramon, it's looking inside first. It's not looking how to impress anybody on the outside, right? What is it that I want to be proud of? And I know that's the cornerstone of who you are, right? And I have to say, I've known him for a long time. The most incredibly humble, helpful, wise man that I've known. He's never ever said no to anything I asked him, and I asked him very little, but I know how busy he is. But that's his brand. His brand is you can run into him in the street and he'll grab you and we'll run to something, grab a hot dog, or you can call him and ask him for advice. It's part of who I consider Ramon to be, a man of integrity, of ethics, of discipline, the hardest worker that I know, for sure. But again, I tell my students that if you brush your teeth, you have two rare opportunity every day to really assess whether you've wasted your life away or not. And when you brush your teeth and you look in the mirror, I just tell them, ask yourself a simple question. Have I been productive today? Have I made a difference? Have I been kind to someone? And if the answer is yes, then finish and go to sleep with a smile. And if the answer is no, that's okay. We all have our good days and bad days. Just make a commitment before you close your eyes to do better tomorrow, right? So between everything that we've shared today, I think the message for the graduates is no one's going to hand you anything. Yes, there's 40 million unemployed. Not many people are hiring. Is that true, Mary? Is the people still hiring for contract work, right?
I think it's a common misconception that people are not hiring. So people are still hiring. You just have to be very specific by the industry. So if I was a job seeker right now, I would look into, and I was looking for maybe something for a couple of months, I would look into retail. I would look into shipping and logistics. I would look into healthcare. I would look into any of these companies doing the COVID tests. I would look into the contact tracers. Cuomo said we're going to need 30 contact tracers for every 100,000 people in New York. Now, if you're looking for a job in a corporate world, and this is something I'll say, this recession is quite different than the recession 12 years ago. The corporate world, truth be told, is doing okay. It's not perfect, but this is very different than the recession 12 years ago. And there are many clients who are willing to still onboard somebody virtually. There are less opportunities. So prior to this, I was working on 80 opportunities. Now we're working on 5, but they're still out there. And as we get from phase 1 to phase 2, you'll see what companies decide to do. And if they decide to hire more people remotely, or if they go with bringing people into the offices. But everything was put on hold. They weren't canceled. And I think that's key, that before 12 years ago, it was all canceled altogether.
So last question, Jess, because we have you here. Most people are going to go through a Zoom interview. Do's and don'ts if you get interviewed on Zoom.
I'll give you a speed round here, which is, and I'm going to start with a crowd pleaser. The camera adds 10 pounds and we're like, oh no, how many cameras do they have on me? And basically if we don't want that to happen, what's closest to the camera is largest, what's furthest away is smallest. So if we sit like this, it doesn't look as great. And that's something that makes us feel better. So actually, if you tilt 15 degrees forward, this is just a style piece. So I said style and substance, head, hands, body, sitting 15 degrees forward. We feel more confident, we feel better. That's a style piece. On the substance side, instead of talking me, you want to be talking about how you can help them. Use the magic phrase, which is for example, which gives those stories. The stories are visuals in their head that really make you stand out. And bouncing off of some stuff that Mary was saying, you always hear build your networking, and you have social networks. So is that in-person networks? So there's social networks. This is relationships. Build relationships. Keep relationships. Don't just reach out to somebody when you need something. In fact, reach out when you don't need something. And you've heard that phrase, give and you shall receive. I'm going to tweak it a little bit. give to give. Let go of the you shall receive part. That probably will happen too, but just give to give.
Perfect. So I don't see too many questions. So we're going to open it up for questions. Anybody that has anything for speakers, you can post it on Q&A. If any of you spot something that relates to you, jump in.
And Zev, sorry about that. Just so you know why you were doing it, I know me and Jess, and I think Mary may have answered a few. We were answering some of them, so apologize. That's why.
No, it's fine. It's perfect. I mean,
That's why you don't see it. We're chatting with people.
You guys are the pros. I'm focusing on not screwing up, so it's perfect.
And Jess brought up just a really good point about the for example. I think the biggest thing is when you answer a question, you don't always want a period at the end of the sentence. So, have you used Microsoft Excel, for example? The answer is not yes, period. The answer is yes, and this is how I've used it. Now, the next question might be, so have you utilized Salesforce before? And you haven't used Salesforce before. And this happens to people. It's happened to me in interviews. They bring up a question and I don't actually have that exact skill. What you do is you pivot and you say, I have not used that specific program. However, this is how I've learned a new software before. And give an example of how exactly what Jess was talking about. For example, how you've done it.
And Mary, it's just like the politicians do, right? Mary, do you like lasagna? Listen, when I was a child eating hamburgers, it was one of the best things that ever happened to me. Not quite.
Actually, if I was
pretty good try.
What's that, Jess?
If I were to combine what you just said and Mary said, if you take a piece of what they said and then you make that pivot and you say it, you add on top of it, it'll be a pretty nice answer. And Mary, boy, I love that. I would start getting sweaty if they said, have you ever used the software, the online software, Salesforce? And if I hadn't, I'd be getting nervous. But that's a wonderful answer because I'll tell you right now, I know that most younger people, and I like to do it too, will just go on YouTube and watch somebody walk you through the whole thing. And next thing you know it. So whatever your process is, that's a great second part of the answer.
The other thing is to be passionate about it. Passion goes much further than accurate answers. So stop looking to do the right thing and do the best you can, right? That comes through. People that hire, they know what they're looking for. They're not looking for a robot that can answer everything exactly. They're looking for somebody that can get the job done. And you can tell that in a person's personality very easily.
And Zev, I see one question there about confidence. May I take a stab at that? I think it was
of course. Go ahead.
I think for me, again, I'd be curious what Mary and David and Jess think about that. But for me, I've just found just doing it, it's hard for me to know how it feels to not have confidence in speaking or other things. That's just me. I do have a lot of fears, but God has made us all different. But I think for those who may be shy or introspective, whatever the English word is, my one advice I want to leave other time for others is just do it. If you know that, swimming as an example. So I never learned, I didn't know how to swim. I still don't know how very well, but the point is I didn't know how to swim at one point in my life. I made a determination that I was going to learn or die. Well, not quite die trying, kind of almost die trying, right to the point of death. So I took swimming lessons. I remember 19 lessons. I didn't finish the 20th one, but I remember my instructor, chocolate, vanilla. I'd wait to hear a voice that I'd do a good job. They train dolphins, the same way they train humans. But my point is, since I didn't know how to do it, I determined I'm going to get over the fear and I'm going to try it. So my best advice on this, confidence, whatever you're lacking confidence in, I found you do it over and over. I'm sure Jess's first videos, David's first videos, Mary's first leadership, we sucked at it. It didn't go well, but you keep doing it, you're going to be fine.
At least we did it. At least we tried. At least you jumped in the water and said, I'm going to go try to figure this out.
That's right.
Yeah, really the goal is you say yes, even though you want to say no.
Amazing. Ramon, I learned how to swim in Israel at age 7 because I was hanging out on the beach. My parents went to the lifeguard, said, teach him how to swim because we can't control this kid. He showed me how to use the leg motions, took me on a raft, which is typical in the Mediterranean, literally took his foot, pushed me off, and went back and just left. This is a lifeguard. And I can't tell you, I think it was survival that I just said, okay, just keep going, open and close, and I wind up coming back. He wind up training me to be a lifeguard a year later. But listen, we do what we have to do. David, I want to end with you because I think it was Zig Ziglar, neck up, check up from the neck up. It's all comes down to mindset. One final advice for anyone to just at least start the journey to a successful mindset. What's the first step we take, especially today?
Be yourself. Be 100% yourself. Don't try to be somebody else. I think that's one of the biggest faults that we have in humanity, is that we're always trying to be, and in many cases we're guided to be something that we're not. As a younger person, I wish somebody would have told me, find out who you are authentically, find out your likes and your dislikes, be firms in your yeses and your nos, and go out and live the life that you really want to live for you, not for somebody else. And when you do that, what's very interesting about that, when you find your authentic self, it aligns with your purpose. You will be able to see your purpose much easier in life, and the things that are for you and the things that are not for you. And I think that when that becomes clear for a person, they make much better decisions.
Great advice. I'm going to share my screen one more time for those of our students that would like to find you after this. Just give me 1 second. Mary, tell me if I'm on, just to be safe.
You are.
Okay.
And while you're doing that, Zev, I just want to highlight, listen, there's nothing to charge. I have nothing to sell you unless you beg me to sell you something. But listen, and I'm sure I agree with Zev, Jess, and others agree, but reach out to me anytime if I can help any of you. Ramon@smarthustle.com. Email me. I'm happy to serve. My LinkedIn belongs to you all, especially let me know you're part of Zev's class or whatever. So we're here to serve. I want to make you a success.
So I'm going to leave the screen up for how to find our incredible speakers. David's got an Instagram, but has an amazing podcast with over 1 million downloads. David's bonus is a 4-part The Art of Success virtual program. You just have to text the word success to the number on the screen. David, do they need the dashes or just type it in straight?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I asked Steph. She said you type it like a phone number. I guess it'll work either way.
Type it like a phone number. And there's no charge. It's totally free.
Yeah. And Ramon, go find him, smarthassle.com. He's got his own podcast. Jess, bonus tips on speaking, right?
Just go to speaktoclose.com.
Yep. And Mary is available to anyone who needs advice. There is contract work. Feel free to reach out to her. And I want to end the show and stop the share. And I want to, again, thank you so much for doing this. I know you're busy. I appreciate your time. Ramon, I used Ramon as a hook. I said Ramon is in. Everybody else said yes. Thank you, Ramon.
I'll just say thank you for the kind words. You're welcome, Zeph. It's a pleasure. Thank you for serving the students and letting us serve with you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks again, everyone, and be safe. Stay healthy. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Bye.